Everybody, thank you for joining us on this lovely foggy morning as it looks like the sun's trying to peek out there. My name's Antonio Fabrizi. I'm with JK Moving Services, and I'm accompanied by Steve Gurney and a couple other individuals here. We're going to have a conversation to you today about senior transitions and what goes into downsizing and everything when you have to move mom and dad into a new or assisted living facility. I'm going to let our speakers introduce themselves, and what I'm going to do is mute everybody's microphone, and the speakers will unmute. We're going to chat for about 30 minutes, and then there's going to be an opportunity for those guests that are in attendance to ask questions to any or all of us at once. You'll be able to put them either in the chat or just at that point, unmute your microphone and ask us directly. So without further ado, I'll let Steve give his little elevator pitch and get us the ball rolling, and then everybody else will introduce themselves. Steve?
Great. Thank you, Antonio. And thank you to JK Moving for putting this together and including me. Long time trusted partner of Sourcebook, and it's been amazing to see what JK's done, not only in the senior living space, but just in being so innovative in the moving and storage space. So delighted to be part of this conversation. So for those of you who don't know me, I publish Positive Aging Sourcebook, and generally on a daily basis, I'm coming in contact with older adults that are either struggling with leaving their home to make a move, eagerly want to make a move, families and caregivers that are concerned about mom and dad, or they're assisting with the transition, and a whole host of providers that are looking for solutions on whether it be aging in place or making a move for their clients. And so I'm delighted to be a part of the conversation today, and let's see where the conversation goes. So again, thank you, Antonio, and I guess I'll pass the baton to my left on the screen to Mary Williams.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Williams, and I'm a residential realtor with Sampson Properties. And earlier this year, I did go and get my senior real estate specialist certification, and I learned a lot. I am the daughter of an older mother. She was born in 1918 during that other horrible pandemic. And so I grew up with a lot of older relatives, and I've always had, of course, a soft spot for mature folks. I've seen a lot of relatives move and make transitions, and so I just feel, very comfortable working with seniors, and helping them it feels very rewarding to me. So Mary Williams, Sampson Properties. I'm going to pass it over to Donna Seeker from Donofrio.
Good morning. Thank you for being here today. My name again is Donna Seeker. I'm with Donofrio and Associates Property Inspections. So the way we could help with this is, I would think the most likely is a home inspection for the person that's going to make the transition, maybe in advance of when they list with someone like Mary or Laura, so that they can go around, so they can make the decision if they want to put money into the home to repair things, to make it easier at the time that they actually sell, or just so they're aware of what is likely to come up. So our inspections, we offer residential and commercial, but our residential are very thorough. They're like a reference manual for what's going on in the property. Again, if it's a pre-listing, then we know someone's coming behind us. So we're going to be super scrupulous about everything. And again, that would help a potential seller to be really, really prepared. So those are that's what I can add today. Thank you again for being here. Oh, and I mentioned Mary and Laura, but we heard from Mary. So Laura, you're next.
Thank you, Donna. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. My name is Laura Larson. I'm the broker owner of Larson Properties. I'm a real estate agent that I also have agents on my team, but I do have a team of people that help when needed, because we are all about giving very personalized care to all of our clients. So we've had a lot of seniors this past year. I don't know why that's been happening, but I think it's because we get a lot of referrals from past clients. So we do like to take really good care of our clients, and so I'm interested in learning more about everybody else today too. I'm going to pass it on to let's see, we have Kevin Wheeler.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Great seeing some familiar faces on the call. I'm Kevin with 123 Junk. So we go into homes and pretty much get rid of anything and everything will come out for one single item, or in the case of a lot of times like a downsizing move with seniors, they take out what they want or what the family wants, and we come in and clear out every last square inch of the house. That's a lot of the type of situations we're dealing with, and a lot of times we can put their mind at ease too, because we have a huge focus on the donation of items. That's where our name comes from as well. So the 1 is to donate, 2 is to recycle, and 3 is to dispose. So we work with nonprofits like Habitat for Humanity, A Wider Circle, and we'll try to salvage as much as we possibly can before items go to the recycling facilities or the landfill. And when people have maintained their furniture for 20, 30, 40 years, a lot of times that kind of eases their mind to know that it's at least living on and not just thrown away. So thanks again for joining. Kevin with 123 Junk. I'll pass the floor to Tammy.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you, and thanks for having me. So I'm with Stonebridge Title. We're a real estate settlement company, and we primarily do Northern Virginia settlements, but we work with everyone who are, people who are first-time home buyers, all the way through downsizing and retiring and moving out of the area. So we really see the range of people making life transitions. And our job is really just to ensure that the title is passed to the new owner and recorded at the county so that everything is smooth and a transition. We do the title search. We work with the lender and the real estate agent very, very closely to get you to the closing table, and then for signing. So my parents just went through last year downsizing, moving out of their home and the area after 50 years. And so I know firsthand the stress that comes with that. And it's still stressful. But anyway, thanks for having me. And let's see, I'll pass it to Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Novak. I am a senior move manager. I own Simply Downsize, which is a Washington, D.C. region referral service for people going through downsizing. So I have a network of vetted professionals where I can make recommendations and referrals to people for every step of the process, from the very beginning stages of planning all the way through to the real estate and closing. So that's that. And then I also own HomeTransitionPros.com, which is a content marketing website, and I invite you to check that out. I'm always looking for professionals to contribute to that. And I'm going to call on Patrice. Or Julie.
Let's see here. Okay, so I think we wanted to get through the panel members here first. So we've got, have we heard from Donna Seeker?
Yes, all the panelists have spoken.
Oh,
So
okay, great. Okay, so I think, well, Antonio, do you want to give us a little bit of an overview of JK Moving?
yeah,
And then
I'll
we'll
touch
get to
quickly on JK
discussion.
Moving for, yeah, definitely. So what's going to happen is we'll have a discussion amongst the 7 of us panelists, and then we're going to open it up for questions about 30 minutes from now. And that's going to allow everybody any of the guests that are in attendance, like to hear where you're from and any questions you might have directed at our specific industries or all of our industries. Like I said at the beginning, my name is Antonio Fabrizi. I'm with JK Moving Services based out of both Sterling and Gaithersburg. We're a full service relocation company, and we take impeccable interest and kinship on developing relationships with those going into senior transitions and trying to develop further relationships to not only grow our business, but to be able to provide a stress-free move with incredible customer service and working with all the different industries that go into a relocation, because it's not just a mover, just like it's not just a real estate agent that goes into the situation when mom and dad have to change their homes or even go to an assisted living facility. So we have relationships amongst different vendors and industries across Northern Virginia and Maryland. And the purpose of this call is to foster some conversation about some of the stressing points and topics that have endured all their lives over the past months. And then obviously like to hear from our guests and their opinions and thoughts about how we can synthesize our referral options and build a trusted circle of kind and similar valued individuals and organizations that can foster the greater good for our aging community. So without further ado, I believe Steve, if not, I have him as well. We have 4 topics we're going to talk about, and then we'll open it up for questions afterwards.
Great. All right. So yeah, so today we basically have 4 topics that we thought would be great conversation starters. Hopefully we're going to get through all 4, but we'll do our best here. And those are, let me just kind of give those to you so everybody can be thinking about different concepts and things that they'd like to share on these topics. So the first is, how COVID impacts senior moves. Like what sort of happened? How has it changed the way that we've approached this and the challenges and solutions that we've come up with? Elements that just influence senior transitions. It's a sort of like, it's a scary time now to make a move. And so, what are some of the positive and negative things that influence a senior move? And building trust with other providers. No matter who we are, we rely on each other for referrals. And what are some of the tools that we use to sort of figure out how to sort of hand off a client when we can't take care of them? And then lastly, just some success stories. So why don't we kick things off with the COVID and sort of how that's impacted your sort of circle of providers and clients. Antonio, you want to kick it off?
I'll kick off that one. And then our other panelists, feel free to chime in at any point. COVID obviously has been detrimental to many people and organizations across the nation. We're very fortunate in the relocation space that we were considered an essential service. So one of the first things we found out were the hotspot areas, and internally within our organization, we took every precaution necessary following CDC guidelines to make sure our crews who would be in the homes actually doing the packing and the moving, and our administrative staff in the offices were able to work remotely or in the office depending on their situation. One of the big things was, well, what would happen if we were not allowed in a city or we were moving somebody from an area to a hotspot or vice versa? What would we do? There were very few cities within the United States we were not able to service for a period of time. For the whole duration of COVID, we've been able to service our moves across all 50 states and internationally. There has been some delay associated with that on the international side. But with the proper documentation, preparation of our trucks being cleaned twice a day and desanitized, and all of our crew, including administrative staff, being checked daily, we've been able to build rapport, especially with the local communities, and allow us in. And some of the assisted living facilities here in Northern Virginia didn't allow movers in and out of the buildings. In some cases, we were the exception, and in some cases, nobody was allowed in. But we've slowly seen that turn, and it's a pivotal point because we are taking every precaution necessary, like everybody else. but we also need to adhere and maintain our level of service, which is above the rest in the industry. So fortunately, we've been able to do that. We don't have anybody we're not able to service at this point. So that's just starting point, I guess. It's ironic because we saw a slowdown for a couple weeks, and now we're still busy here into the fall where we normally aren't.
We found the same in the real estate industry, Antonio, and we have been taking all the same precautions to ensure that everybody is, safe, including, of course, the masks and, making sure everybody's wearing booties, entering the home, and hand sanitizer, things like that. But interesting enough, I found that so many people during this time want to actually make a move and be closer to their families or do whatever it takes. So I've had more senior clients in this year than ever before. It's really interesting. She would think that they wouldn't want to move. They'd want to stay in where they are, but they're actually are wanting to, a lot of them are wanting to make moves and be closer to family and make that final, decision now.
And I don't know for the rest of you, for the panelists, you can speak on this. We've remained flexible with dates. So there's been often situations where either a home sold quicker than expected or didn't sell, or for whatever reason, their moving date had to change. We've been very flexible and available to provide that relief of stress for our customers, especially those in the aging community. So I don't know if any of you have that as well for like closings with titles, because I know we deal a lot with estate services, junk removal as well. And it's nice to have that flexibility for the customer, but I want to hear from how your different industries have curbed that, so to speak.
Well, in our industry, that's kind of always the case. When you set up your move, you don't fluctuate very frequently, I would imagine. There's something drastic that happens with us. Since it's unwanted items, I guess, people seem to either think about it really late in the process or they want to change it last minute when their closing date got moved up. So we always have to be pretty flexible. Most of the clients that call us, their hair's on fire saying we need you out here today or tomorrow. So we don't delay closing. But as far as our COVID protocol, so my brother owns our company. I know a lot of you guys on this call. And we had some scary talks right when it first started about like what we were gonna have to do to kind of stay in business. And as a team, we kind of all got together and put together as many safety protocols as we possibly could. One of the things that we did is we went in, first of all, everyone went home and started working from home. So there's less exposure to other employees, but even the employees on the trucks, they're in contact every single day. In order to lift a piece of furniture, you have to have two people on either side of it. So we kept those teams together, obviously wearing face masks and taking all the necessary precautions, but they still to this day, those teams have been together. So you have the same exposure to the same people on the 123 Junk team day in and day out. And that always wasn't the case at 123 Junk. And also when it first started, we were only going into senior communities with the permission of staff members there. And sometimes it would be an outside party saying, yeah, come on in and come take care of this. We wanted to hear it from the actual director or the move coordinator at the senior facility that we were able to come into a facility before we put anyone in jeopardy there. And a lot of times we would do unsupervised pickups where there was no one in the property. We would have them move out first, or especially in residential homes, we would have them move out first and come in and clear out the place with no one in there. Or we were even incentivizing curbside pickups or discounting them. So those are a couple of the steps that we took to just make sure that everyone stayed safe, and it's gone pretty well so far. So Mary or any of the other panelists?
If I can chime in regarding settlements, we also are an essential service company, and we saw a slowdown, when COVID first hit back in March, April, as the real estate market typically would be ramping up. So it was slightly off. But then what replaced that was the refinance market, and people, staying in their home, maybe taking cash out, but certainly lowering their payments and looking at, our extremely low interest rates, and we're still at that point. And just making smart decisions of, okay, I'm going to stay in my home and manage, my finances and do it that way. Um, when we would go out for settlements, I met people in parking lots and garages and patios and so forth, wearing masks and gloves and the whole thing. And it was really quite eerie because there was nobody on the road. And, but people, we felt this was the safest way to do it. And we are still continuing to do that. Although, as traffic has ramped back up. Some people have gone back to work, but we do remote settlements, and we've always done remote settlements, but we just had an influx of them because of the refi market. So we are now doing a lot of closings, more in the person's home if they feel comfortable. Sometimes I'm just literally handing the closing package to them at the door with the labels and stickies of where to sign, and wait in the car and collect it when they're done. So we just really go with whatever the client feels comfortable with, always wearing masks, always keeping our distance, and trying to, just practice, safe habits as much as possible.
So maybe one final word on that. As we know, it's all about risk mitigation, right? We're managing the risk of health concerns for the clients by use of, hand sanitizers, posting notice. There was a flurry, Lauren, I'm sure you remember, of the COVID addendums and things that came out. Everybody was publishing at different levels, different addendums on trying to manage risk. But I always advise people in this market, which has been a decidedly seller's market for some time, if you can go out of town the first weekend, do that. Because if you've got a nice property reasonably priced, you're going to get so much activity. That way we can leave the lights on, leave the doors open, post your notes, and then you just don't have to be, people are coming in and out of your house. Same thing with open houses. Everything, every time, if people elected to do open houses, or we would just monitor the number of people in at a given time to manage everybody's health and risk. So, and I've had a few folks who I think are just delaying, because maybe like one of my neighbors is going to move next year. I have a feeling it might be a couple years because she was thinking of going to Texas, and, hot spots come and go. But sometimes I think if people don't need to move right away, they're kind of pushing the pause button too.
I think that's a great transition, Mary, to sort of a great conversation topic that there's a couple of comments in chat related to it, and throw your ideas and comments in chat as well. But it's sort of elements that can influence making a move or not making a move. And Mary sort of referenced, a lot of people are pushing pause, okay? And sometimes they're pushing pause, not because they don't want to move, it's because the people around them don't want them to move, okay? And a great story that I can share just to kind of kick this off is that I had received a call, I think it was in about July, from somebody who had a scheduled May move to a life plan community in Northern Virginia. And she was living alone at home, and her kids and her friends all said, "Oh, you can't move there. That's a nursing home." Even we all know it's not a nursing home, but that's a congregate living where infection is running rampant, reading all the headlines. And she was calling me up just to sort of talk through what she was feeling. And what she said was, she goes, "Look, I'm isolated all alone at home here in my house. Okay. And you know, even though my friends and kids are saying I shouldn't move, even though my spot is ready, I don't, I feel like it would be better to be isolated and alone in my apartment in a community with lots of people around me outside the door. And she also had a great thing. She goes, I know I have to move in and quarantine for 2 weeks, but it's going to take me 2 weeks to arrange my
Right.
apartment. So at least now I'm going to be stuck there working on it. So I'm interested in the panel and the audience's thoughts on this.
I wanted to add, not to go backwards, but one reason people are pausing is because they don't want the traffic in their homes of either buyers coming to look or affiliates like us, the home inspector. So I wanted to say that we had done for years a remote or virtual inspection, whichever term you want to use, for people that were out of town, just finding a property online and, you know, didn't have time to make the trip. So we would go around, our inspector would go around with iPad, phone, what have you, and the buyer could feel like they were right there with the inspector going every step of the way. And, you know, hopefully the realtor would actually be there to guide the electronic device. But that was an easy transfer to this situation where buyers did not want to come to the home, or maybe sellers didn't want any extra people in the home. Realtors had the option to be there or not. So we had several different ways of handling the inspection. What I already mentioned, or if neither party, neither the realtor nor the buyer wanted to be there, it could just all be discussed at the end. The inspector could give a call at the end with the findings. But I know that a lot of sellers were like, we don't want extra people in their home, which led to virtual open houses and things. And then along with that, the inspections can be handled that way.
I would like to add to that too. We do a lot of that. So whether you have the listing, if we have the listing side, we do a virtual video, so that will minimize people that can come into the home. We also make the requirement, because a lot of people just like to go in and look at houses, you know, people that aren't worried about the virus as much. And so we require them to be qualified to even view the home. And then we do try to condense everything into that first weekend, like Mary had said, and get everybody in there at once. And if they go away, then they can come back and they can wipe down, Clorox everything, and feel safer coming back into their home and let it air out. And by then we usually have a contract on the home. But we also, when people are buying a home, I have helped a lot of people that aren't even in state, and we just do virtual tours. And like Donna was saying, we do FaceTiming, or, you know, some other kind of in person, you know, not together, but, you know, on video the whole time live. So that's been really helpful for people, and it's a lot safer.
Steve, to kind of touch on your question too, and I don't know if this is technically COVID related or non-COVID related, but I just kind of educating the experts here. But the people's stuff is what prevents them from moving a lot of times, is what I've come to realize. I mean, the real estate industry, we're very close with the real estate industry, and the main feedback I hear is, I have a contract signed. I don't know if they're going to sell in 2 years, 5 years. They can't get the ball rolling on their stuff. So I think that's, first of all, why the move management industry is so important, because you guys are like the quarterbacks of that. Our guys aren't going to be the ones saying, yeah, let's make a decision on this pot right here, on this lamp that was passed down from generation to generation. So yeah, I think that's like the first step. And as far as our services go, I mean, obviously JK can do the moving or put some stuff in storage to get the ball rolling. I think that's what's most important in a lot of those situations, is see some progress being made, whether it's the garage or the shed or the deck. Let's just see a little bit of progress being made, and maybe that will get the ball rolling to, and if stuff's going to donation, I always recommend this isn't really possible during COVID, and unless you guys have other resources that I'm unaware of, but on-site pickups for charities as well. If you can get some charities out there to at least dwindle it down a little bit. First of all, you're going to save money on our services in the long run. And that also can get the ball rolling for your clients.
And that's a good point. One of the things I've got asked a lot, and especially when we do estates, people aren't aware that we can do either multiple moves or, like Kevin had mentioned, bring some of the assets of a home into storage. And it's a really unique option because when you store with JK, for example, your items are going to come in, they're going to be palletized and sealed up. They're not going to be exposed to other people. They're not going to be exposed to the elements. And a lot of people's minds are rested assured, so to speak. If their belongings, let's say they have 4 kids and the house is going to be divided into 4s and we're going to ship it all over the country, but that's not going to happen for 12 months, or that's not going to happen until after COVID when son and daughter settle down in a new area. We can bring stuff into storage for people and we can release it to their kids or other family members anywhere in the world. And a lot of people's minds are assured when it's one organization that handles all those components, that it's not being traded amongst different movers, or it's not going with all these different hands. It's essentially coming in and it's being released once to its final destination. So a lot of the aging community is keen to that service because, one, they're either not familiar with it or they don't have the knowledge of it prior. So it's been really enlightening to offer that service to a handful of our clients, me specifically, but as an organization we continue to do that.
The way I interpreted elements that influence senior transitions, and I'm curious how that was one of our topics, how everybody else, especially on the panel, was thinking about that. To me, it's that window of opportunity when a senior still has their health, their energy, their endurance. And like it can be the difference between moving when you're 65 and in reasonably good health and moving when you're 80. 15 years is potentially huge in your health and ability to face the emotional and physical tasks of going through a potential lifetime of possessions and trying to decide where they're best going. So that's what I call it. And I've had, as I mentioned earlier, I've had a lot of relatives and I've seen some of them jump on it when they had the ability to downsize themselves, and I've seen others wait too long. And then it becomes somebody else's job. And so that's my thought.
I'd love to jump in as in sort of introduce sort of a branch off topic that I think there's a common theme in chat, and Kevin brought it up too, and that is people waiting to the last minute. It's sort of like, okay, I'm ready to move. Now I got to move my whole house. I got to get rid of my possessions. And we know sometimes that results in paralysis, and they say, forget it, I'm not going anywhere. And I really like Anna Novak in chat mentions that she has sort of these downsizing plans, and the 2-year plan is the most popular, which is encouraging, I think, to all of us, because I think most of the clients that we meet are not thinking with a 2-year horizon. But I'm sort of throwing out the topic on how can we get those clients we're working to begin sort of working on this and begin calling up those charities and sort of cleaning things out, but so that they're not doing it the last minute and making the move process so challenging.
Yes, I really like that idea, Anna. I would love to look at that plan. I know I just helped somebody that waited too long. It's a perfect example of what not to do. And it was very difficult. She ended up having Parkinson's, and then it got harder and harder for her to even get around and to pack and the whole process. And then she waited a little too long too, using her equity in her home, so that then she was actually losing money. And if she had done it 2 years prior, she would have been in much better shape. But it was really hard for her, I think, to give up her home. She had been there for 30 years. So I really like that idea. That's great.
Steve, to kind of touch on, like, I guess one tip that I have when I'm talking to clients a lot of times that are like, especially when I do walkthroughs, we don't do a whole lot of those, but like on-site estimate is what we call it. Most of what we do is over the phone. But when I'm doing the walkthrough, I'll a lot of times explain, like, especially with a wider circle, I sit on their young professionals board. We volunteer there on a yearly basis as a team, and they're one of our closer partners. The work that they're doing in the community is so amazing. I mean, they furnish like 15 to 20 homes per day. Mattresses are their most needed item. They're getting people out of poverty. Like if you explain, like, I guess more of the why behind a lot of these charities, I've noticed that allows people, they're like, oh, if it's going there, then yeah, I'm willing to get rid of it versus holding on to something. So I'm sure the move managers know all about those tips and tricks, but yeah, that's something that I a lot of times fill them in, and they're not the only organization we work with, but I like the organizations like them that give back to the firsthand, give back to the people in the community versus, I mean, the Habitats are great as well. They have more of the resale model, but personally, I love the charities that actually give someone a bed that now they have a bed they've never had before. So
That's great. And, Kevin, you really touched on a topic that I'm sure we all get is where can I give away these various things? I mean, it's not the easiest thing to do. And it's actually not the easiest thing to do now in COVID. Like, for example, I know the Goodwill that's near my house, they've got these small windows where you can drop things off. Any suggestions to us on identifying those important organizations that accept donations?
yeah, if you're asking me, we have a list on our website of charities that we've worked with or we currently work with. I'm sure the move managers have lists of a lot of lists for those sort of things, but we have stuff from electronics to pianos to all different types of things that you can donate.
Well, and it speaks to the value of a move manager and not walking this road alone, because it's taking that inventory of what you want to get rid of and then finding those providers. That's that can be a full-time job for somebody and very frustrating.
Right.
So thank you. Anybody else want to jump in with a topic? The other thing that we could kind of like sort of open this up as a broad discussion, but I like how Kevin brought up the working with the charity and the trusted relationship that he has there. I think that's another discussion topic that we wanted to talk about is how can we work together? What are sort of things that make a good referral partner for the panel? Like how does somebody gain your trust and be like that organization like Kevin's working with, where there's this two-way street or one-way street of providing and accepting referrals?
Well, responsiveness, right? If you give somebody a name and they don't even call back or they don't show up or they're rude, that reflects badly on me. And that's, I can't control how somebody behaves on a given day, but it can certainly have an effect on me and my clients. So trusted people that are responsive, polite, honest, those are the things.
So if you guys want, we can allow the guests to start pinging ideas off ourselves if you feel comfortable with it. We've built a rapport, I believe. We all have standing in the positive aging sphere, and I know for all our guests have built an impeccable level of trust amongst their clients, and something that we all share. So I'm curious if any of you can raise your hand, type it in the chat, just unmute and shout at one of us, whatever you want to do. I'm curious. I see a lot of new faces. I see a handful of people I've met before, but I'm more curious than that. So who wants to be the first there on that one?
I just wanted to tag on to that comment. As far as people I partner with, I am super careful who I refer my clients to, people I allow in their home, anyone associated with my business name. Their business might not be my business, but it sure reflects on it.
Right.
And it only takes one bad thing to happen and it can really super affect your business, your standing in the community, you know, who people are or are not going to refer you, you know, to. So that's huge for me. And that dependability, I honestly, I have a hauling company that they were the only company I could find years ago, it was about 7 years ago, the only one that would come into DC and do a job for me. And I stuck to them like glue because they always come through no matter what it is. They, you know, he will bend over backwards to get his people, you know, it could be 9 o'clock at night, but he's going to get there because he knows, you know, we've got to get this house cleared out, whatever. And the people that he sends, I can always rely on. They're going to be polite to the clients. They're going to be very understanding of especially the aging or special needs community. And that's huge.
That's great. Yeah, I think, you know, and I'd be curious if it's great to hear an example of what to do. And Annabelle shared that without naming names, sometimes the best way to figure out what to do is when somebody shares a story of what not to do. And one of the things that I think is very frustrating for those of us who work in a referral relationship is when you hand a referral to somebody and there's no follow-up and they're not keeping you in the loop on what happened with that client that you referred to. And you hear it from your client calling you up, whether it's good or bad. It's sort of like you want to hear it from the referral partner, not from your client first. And I think that's one thing that I've heard over the years.
Well, Steve, that's a great point. And it's funny because my brother, when he started the company, he actually was working for JK before he started the company. So he learned a lot of the things that he implemented in our company from his time, his very short stint at JK. But so I think that's something that we work very closely together with. And from the get-go, I mean, we have the most blue collar industry out there, or one of the most. So we always wanted to make sure that we didn't have that impression when we were going into people's houses. Some of our frontline staff have to go through 3, 4, 5 interviews, including working interviews, before they get hired into our company. And if you come in not wearing uniform, then you're going home for the day, because we understand that reflects on the referral business that people send to us. So about 65, 70% of our business comes by way of referral. So Annabelle, I couldn't agree more that if you don't do a good job, then you're not only affecting your company, but you're affecting the person that sent them your way.
Definitely.
100% agree with you guys. It's so frustrating to, you know, maybe give refer somebody and then they don't perform well or they don't respond. Yeah, we definitely try to only refer people that have the same high caliber of customer service that we like to give.
So my business is basically a referral business, and I have a formal process where I do a vetting process and I look at people's business license. I collect a personal recommendation. I look at their business insurance. So when I make a referral, all that has been done, and my clients really appreciate that because there are a lot of options. And giving a referral that worked a year ago may not work today. So you really have to stay on top of who you're working with, and also make sure that your referral partner is available. You know, they might do great work, but if they're booked out for 2 months, like, I mean, for me, I spend half of my time just networking and making sure that I'm on top of everything and have all the pieces in place when my clients need it.
Yeah, good, very good point, Anna. And this ties into what Kevin's talking about too, is that, and this is not just the move, but it's senior living in general, is that we're a very blue collar, you know, hands-on field of taking care of older adults. And you've got the company and your corporate contacts, but it's that person that gets sent to you, that gets sent to your client's house. Like, how have they been guided? And that's a moving target that we all have to, we all have to have good universal training, good, codes of conduct, as Kevin was alluding to. And it's something for on both sides. We all need to check in with each other and share kind of what is going on in each of our organizations to build the referral. One bullet point that we didn't kind of address, and I just want to throw it out to the audience and the panel, is success stories, especially now in this COVID-19 world. And I know it's a dangerous thing to bring up because sharing a story can be, war and peace. But if anybody would like to sort of share an anecdote of kind of a creative way that they dealt with this downsizing process during the COVID-19, or how they envision it happening in the future, that could be another log to throw in the file for our discussion.
I'll kick that off. There's one in the moving industry. We do similar to what Kevin had mentioned as well. We do an on-site survey, or we have the option to do a virtual survey. Both are very great options. We have a plethora of reps on the ground. I was one of them in the DC, Northern Virginia area. And one of the things from my referral base I found was seniors, some were very keen on using technology and doing the virtual. And some of them still wanted that human interaction, that person or face-to-face meeting, obviously with social distance, masks and everything adhered to. And I had more positive aging individuals than not prefer to have me come to them directly and do a survey and meet them face to face, so they could walk me through their home, so they could tell me about their assets, so they could tell me about their story, how long they've been there. Because in our industry, we're not just moving people, we're trying to build relationships and rapport and trust with them. So it's very nice. And especially when the children are involved, or if they're settling in the state, it's nice to meet all of them, sometimes virtually, sometimes in person. But it's pivotal to be accessible to our customers. And I know for all of our panelists, and including the guests, our industries focus on customer service, and it's something we all have in common.
I'll share a success story as briefly as I can. Earlier this year, I worked with a client, and she was in her 90s, and she was still living alone in her 1970s colonial, all bedrooms upstairs, and she had low vision. And finally, her sons convinced her to move to an apartment. So a senior apartment closer to where they live. So they went through the belongings, they moved her, and then they took on the task of going through things to make sure valuable things, whatnot, weren't lost. So to their credit, they took 6 months to do that. And then they called me in and they said, what do you think? What should we do? Should we sell it as is? Should we make improvements? How much? And I said, well, so I did an assessment, and Laura, I'm sure you've done this too, of what it might be worth kind of in the as is 1970s condition. And I mean, to her credit, this woman was a pretty good maintainer on infrastructure. She had a decent roof, she had decent HVAC, she had windows that weren't original, at least, right? And she had somebody taking care of the yard. But inside, other than that, it was still pretty much 1970. And so I said, well, this is what I think it's worth, between $650 and $700, incredible Northern Virginia prices. And I said, and I think if you fixed it all up between $850 and $950. So then we got a trusted contractor in, and this gentleman will either, at times, if it's worth the money, he will do the work of a rehab and collected settlement, or if they have the funds and want to pay him up front, you can do that too. And I know there's multiple companies that'll do that. And so they elected to do it. $150,000 was spent on the property, and it sold well above list in the 900s. So in that case, it was worth that investment. Now there's always a tiny bit of risk, right, with the running those numbers for people. And then of course it was, I think, March when everything was shutting down. And I'm like, oh my goodness, we're all like, what is this gonna have an effect on the industry? But truly the buyers we got this year were very serious for the most part. There weren't too many looky-loos. and they ended up with multiple offers. It was an unoccupied home, which was easier, right? Because she already moved out. And they remodeled it, we staged it, and it moved. That was a success story. And I felt good because then she more than made up that $150,000 investment. And then hopefully that will carry her through, help carry.
Yeah. Does anyone in the audience have any topics or questions or ideas they want to bounce off?
Hi, I have a question. My name is Emily. I work with older adults who are on a affordable housing wait list in the
Okay.
state of Maryland.
Nice.
So my question is, do any of you consider your services to be affordable for a low income older adult who's on a fixed income?
Yeah, so I'll tee that off. With JK Moving Services, it's well known we are not the cheapest mover. With that said, we do have payment options available for customers, and we have different venues that can allow them access to funding in the immediate time. But one thing when you deal with relocation, if you're going to buy on price with relocation, you're probably either going to buy twice or it's going to turn out to be more expensive because things either didn't get done correctly or there needs to be rework or broken items. So the financing option is has been a very good resource for many of our clients, especially in the DC and Montgomery County and actually all of Maryland as well. We actually rolled that out about 60 days ago, so it's relatively new, but it allows people access to money when they need it.
Antonio, that is a great point. I mean, I touched on this a couple times, but to be in the junk removal industry or even the moving industry is pretty low barrier of entry. You get a truck,
Right.
you can lift stuff, then you can consider yourself a junk hauler in a lot of cases. But that doesn't mean you're licensed, insured. You do the background checks that we do on your employees. That you're going to be donating items. So yeah, there's always going to be cheaper options, I would say, compared to like the level of competition that we associate ourselves with. We tend to be on the middle to lower end of that because we are a local independent company versus like the franchise model. So,
and the other thing and I don't want to cut you off, Kevin. The other thing I will tell you, Emily, we are open to discussion and ideas, and we can always chat after the event too. If it's something where there's a lot of clients or there's a lot of residents that are going to be moving to specific areas, we can always go through different pricing models and suggestions and try to work out a relationship that's a little bit more keen to the services you provide as opposed to just somebody that calls us that needs to move. It's something we also do. So I'd be more than happy to chat with you off at a different time after the call as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought this topic up. I mean, affordability is one of the biggest issues in our area in the Mid-Atlantic. I mean, even if you did everything the right way, it can be challenging. Now, the one thing that I've seen over the years is a lot of times there may be, if somebody is in subsidized apartment rental and now they're moving to a subsidized senior apartment rental, there might not be as many resources. However, we see, and the realtors can chime in on this, a lot of times there's somebody who does have the home. They did purchase a home and they have that asset, although they don't have much income, which enables them to qualify for subsidized housing options. And if they do have a house, that can be tapped into as a resource to help them make that transition.
No, it's a very good point.
Yeah, and lenders, and financial folks are good to help with that too, as far as reverse mortgages or any of that. That's not my area of expertise, but I have people that, can speak to them about that. And I'm lucky enough to work with a broker that gives me a lot of leeway on what I do charge people. So, and it sort of depends on the level of service, right? And I am on an ongoing basis trying to figure out what I can offer my seniors, especially without having other clients feel like they're being treated as less. I was raised to ask for the senior discount, so I was pretty happy when I got to 55 and could join AARP and all that.
And on the settlement side, you know, again, we work with very, very closely with the lenders and real estate agents. And we understand that some people are coming to the table and it's, you know, very price sensitive. So we will discount our fees if we can. There's nothing that is 100% set in stone. It's something that, you know, ask and we can make it work and help out that client, we will. There are certain fees, of course, like, you know, recording fees and deed transfers and things like that, taxes, all of that, that we can't do anything about. That is part of the closing cost. But as far as the settlement fee, we can certainly work with the client on that.
What other ideas, guys?
I can say that I've actually been contacted occasionally by churches that are trying to help out some of their senior members, and they actually will contribute to, you know, say our fees to help their senior in need, or could, I mean, we've also had like boarding referrals, things like that, that we may or may not take on, but we of course always try and find someone who will. But sometimes we have been paid occasionally by nonprofits because not everyone does own a home. Not everyone does have untapped equity. You know, sometimes they've been renting, you know, for 60 years or whatever. And and I do tell people you know, our services aren't cheap. We have way more overhead than I would have thought when we first went into business. I didn't realize how much in taxes and insurance and phones and marketing and just like everything. And there's only so much you can, you know, reduce your price and still stay in business. I mean, I'm happy to give discounts, especially to seniors and people I really feel like, wow, they could, if I could just discount it a little bit, they could do this. But there are some people who literally just cannot afford our services. And there's only so much, you know, pro bono work a company can do.
Annabelle, great point. I'm glad you brought it up on faith-based organizations and the clients that we're serving. And I'll just throw out a few little carrots here. Number one, for somebody who is on a fixed income, if they're involved with a church, they may not think, or they might not be brave enough to reach out to their church and ask for help. You know, it's very difficult to ask for help, especially people who volunteer a lot. They're into really helping other people, but when it comes for them asking for help, it's difficult. But that is the mission of a lot of faith-based organizations, is to help their members with that. But regardless if your client is on a fixed income or a multimillionaire, one of the things that we know is that faith-based organizations have a lot of great programs. They have thrift shops, they have a ton of things. And just as we're working with our clients, doing an inventory of all the organizations and clubs that they're a member of, that could be a great place to donate things. But also it's a great place to recruit volunteers that might be able to assist in the move at a lower cost rate, you know.
And on all these points too, I think the one way to save the most money is plan ahead. I can probably speak for JK as well, that if you wait till the last minute, it's always going to be more expensive. Some of these hoarding situations, we've been a part of those before, where we had a week or 5 days to do a hoarding pickup, and that's going to be extremely pricey for that client or that family. Where if you could maybe get in in those situations, it'd probably have to be years in advance to kind of get them the help they need. Then maybe you can save some money in the long run through some of those free options or estate sales or other options to kind of dwindle down the volume and not have us charge to haul away every last item from the property.
I'll jump in here. This is Erin with Wise Moves, a senior move management company. And I have to say that it is so much less stressful for our clients to really get a jump on this and really get a head start on it rather than, you know, waiting for a very need-driven situation and having to downsize their home of 50 years in, you know, a month. So I really, you know, loved hearing about the 2-year plan. I think that's just about right. But a lot of people don't do that and then call us in. And it's, you know, we certainly go a long way toward removing a lot of the stress. But it's more expensive when you do it at the last minute or when our clients take this on at the last minute in every way, and especially with stress. So it's great to get a good team. You know, we encourage our clients to go ahead and get their, you know, get their realtor lined up, begin talking with their realtor about what needs to be done to the home in order to get it ready to go on the market. And it is interesting how they all seem to be so reluctant to put the money into the home. A lot of them are wanting to sell as is. I hear that all the time until they get the advice of a good, you know, of a good realtor. So, you know, doing a little bit at a time for them goes a long way. And when we work with clients and we have enough time, we can certainly give them homework to do on their own. We can help them help them for a few sessions and then say, okay, now, you know, next time, by the time we come back next time, maybe you can do this or that, go through this bookcase or this closet. And they feel great once they get some momentum going. But once it becomes a really need-driven situation, that's when it gets more stressful.
Yeah.
Yes,
Anyone
that
else?
is very true. I just experienced that. Yeah, she waited too long. So it's really, I love these ideas that you guys are talking about with the 2-year plan. It's great.
Well, I mean, I will say that people love the idea of the 2-year plan, but most people don't act until their back is up against the wall for whatever reason, whether
Yeah.
they
See that a
committed
lot.
a new place or if there's, you know, an accident or some kind of, you know, event that is the catalyst for it. But I just want them to call me when that happens, because this can, as we all know, this can happen in a very short amount of time if you have the right people in place. I mean, it usually does happen in a short amount of time, to be completely realistic about it, but to get people thinking about it and to kind of get into their orbit early is what I'm trying to do.
I think that's what's key, is to get them in that mindset to really start thinking about, oh, well, if I just, and taking it at, you know, one bite at a time. Okay, my father needed to purge the garage, you know, of 40 years of, you know, woodworking and collections and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, you just break it down in those bite-sized pieces. That 2 years can go by really quick, right? Do you have a list that you can share?
Me?
Yeah, did you say you had the 2-year plan?
Yeah, no, those are, I give those away on my website. I'd be happy to share those with you
Oh,
guys. There's a form. It's a 2-year, 1 year, and then 6 months. And then I just mentioned, so I'm launching a 15-minute a day plan. I have a whole year written out and I'm going to start doing those out one a day on weekdays.
The key is to find the people that will do it.
Right.
You know, just so many people, it's like, that's a great idea,
Right.
but I'm not going to do anything until you come back.
Right. I'm not thinking they're actually going to do it, but get them thinking
But
about
it's
it.
a great idea. The other
Yeah.
thing is, if you have active family members that are actually helpful, a lot of the family members I've come into contact with are actually do more harm than good. They're too
Mhm.
pushy. They're too like, why are you keeping this? It's like, no, that's not the way to approach this. Let them tell their story, then see if they'll give it away. But years ago, I moved in with my mom, with my husband, 4 kids and a dog, because we were renovating. Every weekend, I went up to the attic and I picked a topic: suitcases, jigsaw puzzles, linens, brought it all down. We went through it. When she actually went to move many years later, the attic was cleared out. She didn't want any of it. It was easy. So if you can actually get family members to get on board to really helping, but explain to them, small chunks, don't overwork people, and also like let people tell their stories. They have to process that. My mother classically was like, oh yes, dear, that beautiful damask linen tablecloth was your grandmother's. What? So you want it? Oh no, dear, I haven't used that in years. I was like, but it was good for her to just like process what it was. And it's like, okay, it can go.
Mhm.
That's a great story, Annabelle. When my mom was still alive and I was visiting to help take care of her, we'd go through a closet at a time. And there were great stories, like you said.
Yeah.
Some of it she wouldn't let me get rid of, but some things.
And sometimes it takes multiple go-throughs with clients. Like we'll do one go through and, I'm absolutely not getting rid. And this is clients of all ages, but absolutely not going, blah, blah, blah. And then the next, I've rethought that encyclopedia set. I really don't need it. Or, and the other thing is for the people who are sure that their kids and grandkids want their things, encourage, sending photos, whether they can do it or you do it for them, and actually make sure that that person wants it, because quite often they don't, or the reverse. I've had people be like, oh, my grandchildren, no one wants anything, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, actually, some of them would, but it's easier if you just send pictures, get a yes or a no, and it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, we keep my mom on top of it, and my mom and dad, I should say, by just periodically bringing trucks over to their house and saying, hey, it's here to pick up some stuff.
Wow,
Great
Kevin,
idea. Idea.
can you bring a truck
Well,
over to my house? Maybe that will work too.
I mean, one of
I
the
haven't-
things I wanted to kind of throw in, there's a lot of things that are actually going up with this COVID crisis, like home remodeling and home improvement, and probably Kevin's sort of seeing some people that are addressing some of the junk because they're stuck in their homes. And
Yeah.
you can see where, and I'm sort of thinking, with the crystal ball, like a collaborative campaign with all of us. It might be that we bring together us as a group and sort of say, start your downsizing adventure now. Like if, it's like wear a mask or got milk or something like that, where as an industry, if we kind of come together and we all sort of try to encourage our clients to think in advance, I think we could begin to see some results.
Definitely.
I love that idea, Steve. I cannot help but going back to this. I just helped. I got her at the very last minute. She was forced to sell her home for financial reasons and had to do it quick. So it was really stressful. She would put a ton of items on her front porch and sell them on Facebook for 25 cents. She really just didn't want to put them in the dump, but she had to, end up doing that for a lot of them. It was really, really, really stressful for her because she waited and way too long. And then COVID made things worse for her. So I love that idea.
So I have a quick question for everybody on the call. If we were to try to do this type of event again in the future, I know we're nearing the end here. What are some of the topics or ideas, or how would you want to see it change or be the same? Feel free to just shoot out some ideas, what you'd like to see, what topics you'd want to discuss, size-wise maybe.
I'd like to know a little bit more about for one thing, current real estate trends as far as like how much people need to fix up, because they say, oh, well, the market is so great, I don't need to fix it up at all. I know that's not the case, but there is a level of, before you needed to fix it up this much, maybe now it's like more like this much. And how important is staging? You know, we do like staging light. You know, we can supervise like getting carpet and paint and all that, but then we do like nice, like it used to be guest towels, now it's like paper guest towels, things like that. But I'm interested, that would be a topic I'd be interested in, so we can give our clients the best advice.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
'cause
know, I
every situation is different. Every, home is a different situation. So it really always just depends.
And for this particular kind of group of folks, I would like, or especially Steve, I think is really kind of the guy that would handle this, but it's really kind of getting together. A lot of the folks that some of us on the call deal with are seniors who are financially strapped, who are either getting forced from their home, especially with all the things that are kind of happening, and really kind of finding these, cost efficient, affordable resources that can help these folks. Like I've got somebody who maybe, at the end of December, who is going to be homeless. And so what do I do with all this stuff, and how do we get them connected to resources and things like that? So that's what I would be interested in seeing.
Nice.
Yes. There is a shortage of affordable housing for seniors, definitely.
Mhm.
I would agree with that. This is Adrienne. I work at social services in Calvert County, Maryland. And very much so, I would like to see the same type of thing that Julie described, but also more talk about downsizing. Unfortunately, a lot of times when, as a caseworker, I go into someone's home, it's leaning towards that kind of late, we're here because your house is unsafe. Very well could be a very valuable home and full of wonderful things and some junk. But it's one of those things where the good thing is we're one of the people that will actually make it into their home, and we would be able to at least say, hey, these services are out here for you.
Mhm.
Yeah, really good. I think, yeah, I've heard the affordability thing, and not this group, but I think what I'll do in November is do sort of like an affordability summit, where we can really dive into this deeper. That's definitely rang true offline, not associated with the JK conversation.
Anyone else?
This has been great, Antonio.
Antonio and Steve.
Yeah,
So
this
one thing I
was-
will say, I put my contact information up in the chat. Feel free to share it as well. For those guests, I will also send out an email of our speaker's contact information, which you should have received via a flyer. I'll send that out as well. And if any of you want to chat or set up a one-on-one with me or anybody else in the group, feel free to email me. My email is attached to the chat as well.